Last episode, I asked you to do one thing. Stop. Breathe. Pause 10 seconds before you act. Then ask yourself 3 questions. I'm Stephen Rohde, and this is Course Correction, where men find their way back to themselves. I'm sure some of you used the pause this week. Some of you didn't. Some of you might have used it, asked the questions, and still reacted the same way you always have. All that is okay because all of that is the work. Before we jump into today's episode, though, let's review the framework we're building together. It starts with recognize, then consider, and now adjust. Episode 1 was recognize. Just see the pattern clearly. Episode 2 was consider. The pause where your power to choose actually lives. And today we're going to talk about adjust. What one small correction actually looks like in real life. I'm going to give you a heads up before we start, though. Adjusting probably doesn't look like what you think it does. Okay, so let's jump in. So here's what I've noticed when men get to this step. They've done the work. They've recognized the pattern. They sat with the questions. They felt the weight of what it's costing them. They found something, however small, that matters enough to them to want to change it. And now they're ready to adjust. And somewhere in their mind, adjust translates to fix, solve, done. You see, the capable man's brain is wired for completion. We identify the problem, we make the change, we move forward. That's the operating system that built careers and provided for families and handled everything that needed handling. So when I say adjust, that same operating system hears close the loop, check the box, don't let it happen again, get it done. And then it happens again. And when it does, men don't think, oh, okay, that's the work. I need to just hang in there. No, they think I failed. The framework doesn't work. This is just who I am, and nothing is going to change that. Let's stop there. That moment, the moment the pattern comes back after you've tried to adjust, that's not failure. That's the beginning of the work. And there's a difference between those two things that is everything. Adjust is not a finish line. It's the first time you express your choice as action. One time, in one moment. That's an adjustment. Remember, this pattern has been with you for years, possibly decades. One adjustment doesn't erase it. What it does is prove something. It proves that between the trigger and the reaction, there is space. And in that space, there is a choice. And you made it once. That once is the beginning, not the end. Let's go back to the man we've been following. My client who's a husband, a father, he's in his early 40s. Successful on paper. He had that moment at 2 a.m. in the morning in episode 1. He saw the pattern, the shutdown, the distance, the way he moved through his own life like a stranger in it. In episode 2, he tried to fix it immediately. Had the big conversation with his wife. And then it fell apart within a week. We left him sitting with 3 questions. What is this costing me right now? What does this cost me going forward? What matters enough to me to change this? He sat with those questions. He didn't have clean answers, but he sat with them. A few nights later, his wife came home, tired from a long day at work. She, I guess, had been dealing with an issue with her son's teacher as well. He could feel the tension in the room, that familiar pressure that usually sends him straight to his phone or the garage, or just gone. And he felt the pattern start, that familiar pull toward shutdown. This time he stopped. He breathed. He held the moment, and he stayed. He didn't say anything profound. He didn't have a big vulnerable conversation. He just asked her how her day was and actually listened. He looked at her instead of away from her. He stayed present for about 15 minutes before the kids needed something and the moment passed. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a turning point. It was 15 minutes of choosing differently. He said that about 3 days later, he was the same situation kind of came back. It was same room, similar pressure. And when it all came to that point, this time he shut down completely. She tried to connect with him, but he was gone. One-word answers, he just was somewhere else. The whole pattern back, like those 15 minutes never happened. When he told me about it, I recognized the shame in his voice. It's the shame of a man who thought he'd gotten somewhere, had made some progress, and then found himself exactly where he started. It was the shame of someone who thought they had failed again. I recognize that shame because I have felt that shame myself. Here's what I shared with him. I said, you didn't lose the ground you gained. 3 days ago, you proved something to yourself, that there is a moment between the trigger and the reaction where you can choose. You know that now in a way you didn't before. What happened today doesn't erase that. It just means the pattern is still there. It's still strong, and you're going to need to make that choice more than once. So we went back to the questions. That same week, he sat with them again. And this time, with the sting of that shutdown still fresh, the answers landed deeper, more real, more true. He asked, what is this costing me right now? Not intellectually, but how does this make me feel? What does this cost me going forward? He let himself see it this time, both futures, the one where nothing changes and the one where something changes. What matters enough to me to change this? This time, underneath the answer about his marriage and his kids, he found something that belonged to him. Not the marriage, not her response, not whether the kids noticed. Something closer to the man he actually wants to be. The distance between who he was being in those moments and who he knew himself to be. That distance, that's what he couldn't live with anymore. And that matters. The next time the moment came, he caught it again. He made a small choice. He stayed present just a little longer than his old pattern wanted him to. You see, he hasn't fixed everything. He hasn't solved the deeper questions, but something is shifting, slowly and for real this time. Let's be clear about what an adjustment is and what it isn't. Adjust is not a complete transformation. It's not the moment you suddenly become a different man. Adjust is a correction. like the navigator on a ship who is constantly making small adjustments to account for wind, current, drift. No single correction is dramatic, but each one keeps the ship on course. And over time, those corrections compound into something significant, something essential. So what does a small adjustment, a small correction actually look like? Well, it can look like 15 minutes of genuine presence instead of a shutdown. It looks like a question asked instead of a reaction delivered. It looks like staying in the room when you want to leave it. It looks like noticing the frustration rising and then pausing one beat before you act on it. It's small. It's quiet. It's often invisible to everyone around you, but it's felt by you, in your body, in that moment when you chose differently. Here's where the adjustment actually happens. It happens in your perception first, not your behavior. You don't manage the reaction and then act differently. You change how you're seeing the moment, and then the action follows naturally from that. That distinction matters because managing reactions takes willpower, and willpower, quite frankly, runs out. Changing perception, seeing the moment differently, that creates a different response without any force or coercion. I'll show you what I mean with something that happened in my own life recently, because this isn't abstract for me. I'm doing this work right alongside you. My partner, Allie, and I moved in together last November. She moved into my home. We're building a life together. As part of that, we've been DIY renovating. New floors, paint, doors, the whole upstairs. Now, I need to give you a little context about me and this kind of project. I have a specific way I like to do things. There's a logical order, a right sequence, and if I'm honest, there's also something underneath that. My need to control the process, my process, and my space. I had this process mapped out. We were preparing to prime the walls in the master bedroom. I was going to cut the edges and corners of the walls first. That's the detailed, precise work. Then finish priming. Then repeat the process with the paint, one step at a time. My order. One afternoon, I was out of the house. When I came back, Allie showed me that she had primed the walls, but I hadn't finished cutting everything yet. Okay, my immediate internal response was frustration, annoyance. That wasn't my plan. This isn't how we're doing it. I didn't say anything, but I felt it. And in that moment, I recognized it. I knew exactly what was happening, not just the frustration, the thing underneath it. My need to control the process in my space, which was now our space, which was the whole point of all of this. So I stopped and I considered it. Why am I frustrated? Because she didn't follow my sequence. But does her priming the wall actually matter? It's primed correctly. Does it help us move forward faster? Yes. Does it show that she's invested in this? That she wants to contribute, wants to see it done, wants to make this space hers too? Yes. And if I give her the agency to contribute, if I honor her need to be a part of this, what does that do for us? What does it demonstrate to her? That I see her. That I value her. That this is our home, not my home that she moved into. So what matters? So what matters enough to me to change this? She does, and we do. So I adjusted, not by suppressing the frustration, not by talking myself into being okay with it. I changed how I was seeing it. I went from seeing a disruption, she didn't follow my process, to seeing a contribution. She's building our home with me. That shift happened in a single moment, in my perception, and what followed from it was genuine, not performed. I told her thank you. I told her it was so helpful, and I meant it. As I reflect on it now, as I share this with you, here's what that one small adjustment gave me. Harmony. Harmony between us. In a moment that could have gone the other direction. A project that's moving faster because we're doing it together. A lightness, genuine lightness, from recognizing in real time how my need for control was getting in my own way, in our way. And the calm that comes from doing something that's actually grounded in who I choose to be. And there's something else too. It's like the force multiplier of the partnership. As we are building something together instead of either of us managing it, everything moves differently because we are building trust. Now here's what I want you to notice about that adjustment. I still felt the frustration. I didn't eliminate the reaction. The pattern showed up. It arrived right on schedule, the way it always does. What changed was the 10 seconds between the feeling and the action. I recognized it. I paused. I considered what was actually true, and I chose to act from that truth, from what I actually value, instead of from the reaction. That's what adjust looks like. Not the absence of your reaction. It's the choice about what you do with it. I want to share something else that happened just last week with a client of mine, a man I've been working with for a while now. He was in an ongoing conflict with his wife, one of those recurring situations that keeps surfacing, keeps escalating, keeps pulling them both into the same places they don't want to go. He felt himself get triggered. He felt the snap coming, that rising heat, the words already forming, the familiar acceleration toward a place he's been before and didn't want to go again. And in that moment, he stopped. He recognized what was happening, and this time he considered it. He asked himself the questions, and then he did something I want you to hear very carefully. He chose to see the situation through what we call core truths. For him, it's 4 words. That's all he had. 4 words he'd arrived at through a process we've done together. Words that represent who he actually is at his core. What remains when everything else falls away. He held those 4 words in that moment, and he saw his wife differently. He saw the situation differently. He saw what was actually being asked of him. Not by her, not by the argument, but by who he actually is. The whole moment shifted. Something new became possible that wouldn't have been possible 30 seconds earlier. He told me things have been genuinely good since then. Not perfect, not resolved in some final way, but different. Because he was different in that moment. And that difference changed what followed. I'm going to talk about core truths in future episodes. What they are, how you find them, how they become the lens through which you see everything. That process is some of the most important work I do with the men I work with, and it's coming. But for now, sit with this. There are words that belong to you. Words that describe who you actually are at your core. Not who you were taught to be, not who you perform for the world, but who you actually are. And when you find them, they become a compass in exactly the moments when you need one most. That's what the consider step is building toward. That's what the deeper work is for. For now, the practice of recognizing, pausing, and considering what's actually true is already moving you in that direction. Every time you ask, what matters enough to me to change this, you're reaching toward those words. They are what are helping you learn to adjust. Here's the truth about what's ahead. The adjustment I made with Ali and the shift my client made with his wife, those are real. Those moments happened and they mattered. But the pattern I caught in that moment with Ali, my need for control, the rigid sequence, my impulse to manage things in my own space, that's been with me a long time. It has roots. And that one adjustment in that one moment didn't pull those roots out. I will catch it again. I'll miss it sometimes. I'll feel the frustration arrive, and sometimes I'll act on it before I even realize what happened. Again, that's not failure. That's my pattern being a pattern. It's been doing its job for a long time. It's not going to step aside just because I chose differently once or twice. Why does my pattern exist in the first place? Where did it come from? What was it protecting me from once that made it necessary? And what does it think it's still protecting me from now? This process of recognize, consider, and adjust doesn't touch the why yet. That's deeper work, and that's what's ahead of us in the coming episodes. For now, you're making real corrections, important ones. Just know that the root of the pattern is still there. So let's use that to orient you. The adjustment you're practicing right now, recognizing, pausing, choosing differently, that's not a temporary fix while you wait for the real work. This is the real work. This practice, failing at it, resetting, trying again, is how you build the awareness and the muscle you'll need to go deeper. You can't get to the why until you've been living in the recognize, consider, adjust cycle long enough to start asking, why does this keep happening even when I'm trying? That question, when it becomes genuine and urgent, is the door to the next level of this work. And we'll walk through it together. So this week, find one moment where you feel the pattern starting. You've been recognizing it, you've been practicing the pause, and you've been asking yourself those 3 important questions. So this week, make one adjustment. I am not saying that this is a transformation. I'm not saying that this is a commitment to never do it again. This is not a conversation where you announce that things are going to be different. Just one choice in one moment from what actually matters to you. And remember, you're not trying to eliminate the reaction. You're changing how you see the moment. Because when you see it differently, when you find what's actually true in those 10 seconds, what you do next changes naturally. That's the adjustment. Small, quiet, real. And when the pattern comes back, because it will, don't quit. Reset. Go back to the questions. Let the answers land harder this time. And please try again. That's not starting over. As I said before, that's doing the work. Next episode, we're going to go deeper into something that every man in this work eventually runs into. You've recognized the pattern, you've considered it, you've adjusted, maybe more than once, and still it comes back. Same trigger, same pull, same pattern, like it has a life of its own. And the question becomes, why does it keep coming back? That's where we're going next. And when we get there, I think a lot of things are going to start making sense that haven't made sense before. This is Course Correction. I'm Stephen Rohde. If what we talked about today has landed something real for you, if you saw yourself in any of it, know this: that recognition, that willingness to look at it honestly, that's not a small thing. That is the work, and you don't have to do it alone. You can find me at yourcoretruths.com. Until next time, recognize it, pause, and choose.